Hello and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News Channel. Due to the regulatory environment, I have to bring this topic up. Is it time to look at investing in coins that have their main operations outside of the United States? Now, I buy mostly on US exchanges, so that's going to be kind of hard. But for those of you that buy on DEXs and other things, is it time to actually look at buying coins that mainly reside outside the US? Because US regulations only affect the United States. They do not affect the rest of the world. So coins that are based in, let's say, Europe, South America, that might be a little unstable, unfortunately. China, as long as the government's not after them, obviously. Japan, Korea. Could they be better investments? Because those countries, aside from China, obviously, are more open to crypto than the United States, and the regulatory requirements won't be so burdensome. Therefore, those coins could actually grow much faster in their countries than than crypto companies can grow in the United States. And there is a possibility, if the regulations are bad enough, that American companies might move to other countries. We've seen it before, especially with industrial production, it gets offshore. So there is actually a good chance that some of these crypto companies will actually move headquarters. Ripple's actually talked about it. They haven't done it, but they have actually talked about it. And I think others will actually think about that as well. If the EU gets really good regulations, if there's clarity, if Japan gets clarity, if other first world countries get clarity, would these big crypto organizations move to those countries? And will crypto organizations that start up in those countries have an advantage over ones in the United States because of our regulatory uncertainty, or because the SEC and all these agencies are trying to basically destroy crypto, including the Treasury and all that stuff? I just find it really weird that they try to protect proof of work, even though it's the most environmentally unfriendly, and they actually brought that up. So the regulations in the US are kind of a mess. So, coins like Vechain, like FTT, and other coins, they could actually see a lot more growth in the future, at least in the next 2 years, while the US gets its regulations in tow, than coins in the US that are burdened by regulations in their home country. Yes, I know that VET is actually based in Singapore, but having the adoption in China and in Europe could actually be better than trying to expand in the US at the same time, because you don't really know what's actually going to be allowed in the US and what's not. Whereas in Singapore, whereas in Europe, and in China, as long as you're okay with the government, you're fine. But in Europe and other places, you have much more friendly regulations. Your business can expand more. You can actually have more utility. And by the time US opens up, if you already have a massive network utility in Western Europe or something, it might be easier to bring to the United States, because a lot of multinational companies will want to use one system throughout their entire organization. And since you already dominate their organization in Europe, they might just bring it over to the United States. The thing for the US is people are saying, well, they're not adopting VeChain because it's Chinese. Well, they're really not adopting anything. So that's not really -1 for VeChain just because it's Chinese. They're a lot of these US companies really aren't adopting anything. Yes, they're buying Bitcoin funds, and some of them are integrating private versions of Ethereum, but in terms of public blockchains, they're not very good with the adoption right now. And that's really because, especially for crypto, they're not really sure what the government's going to regulate on these coins. And like Sam Bankman-Fried said, it might take the US 3 to 5 years to do this, while in Europe you might actually have more lenient regulations right now, and in other places there's just more room for expansion. So I think it is time for us to look at coins that are multinational or are stationed somewhere not in the US and have more potential to grow outside the US. Because if you only have potential to grow in the US, even though that is a huge market, you don't really know what the rules are. Whereas if they're expanding outside the US and the rules aren't hindering them as much, they might actually have greater price growth, more partnerships, and more utility sooner than the ones in the US because of our regulatory environment. So let me know what you think, like and subscribe, and hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.